When I study carefully the last days of Cleopatra, I realized it was the beginning of a religious act.
Beyond doubt of who this skeleton actually is, none other than Cleopatra's sister, Arsinoe.
They called it a geometric miracle, a massive tunnel hidden under an ancient temple, leading straight to the Mediterranean Sea. It is the biggest clue we have found in 20 years. But that is not the crazy part. The crazy part is what scientists found when they analyzed the bones of the only member of her family we have ever located. It wasn't a match. It wasn't even close. It revealed a genetic time bomb that suggests the last pharaoh wasn't just ruling Egypt. She was biohacking her own survival. The geometric miracle. For 2,000 years, the sands of Egypt have held on to a secret that has driven treasure hunters mad. We are talking about the final resting place of Queen Cleopatra. Most experts will tell you she is gone. They say she is buried under the modern streets of Alexandria, lost forever to earthquakes and rising tides. But for the last 20 years, one woman dared to say they were all wrong. Her name is Kathleen Martinez. She isn't your typical academic in a tweed jacket. She is a criminal lawyer turned archaeologist. And she didn't approach this like a history lesson. She approached it like a cold case. She treated the Queen's disappearance like a mystery that needed to be solved. While everyone was looking left, Martinez looked right. Her suspect profile led her 30 miles west of Alexandria to a crumbling temple called Taposiris Magna. And in 2022, the ground beneath her feet finally gave up a ghost. Martinez and her team smashed through the limestone and found something that should not exist: a tunnel. But not just any tunnel. This thing is a shocking replica of legendary Greek engineering. It is carved through solid bedrock, stretching over 4,300 feet. That is nearly a mile long. It is 6 feet high, submerged in mud and water, and it heads straight out toward the Mediterranean Sea. Architects are calling it a geometric miracle. Why go to this extreme? Why tunnel 40 feet underground into unstable, dangerous rock? You don't build a mile-long aqueduct for a minor site. This implies something huge. The discovery of a sunken port off the coast suggests this wasn't just a remote temple, it was a hub. And Martinez believes this tunnel leads to the end of the line. Her theory is terrifyingly simple. The Queen wasn't just hiding from her end. She was hiding from Rome. She was hiding from the humiliation of being paraded in chains. She wanted to be immortal, and to do that, she needed a tomb that could never, ever be found. She buried herself where she thought no one would ever look. Martinez may have found the front door to that sanctuary, but inside the complex, the team made another discovery that sent shivers down their spines. Buried in 16 rock-cut tombs were mummies. But these weren't ordinary burials. When the archaeologists looked into the crumbling faces of the dead, they saw something glittering in the darkness. Gold. Inside their mouths, where their tongues should have been, were amulets made of gold foil. The ancient Egyptians believed that to survive the afterlife, you had to speak to the gods. A golden tongue gives you the power to plead your case. It grants golden eloquence. But why are they here? Why at this specific temple? Martinez believes these weren't just random people. They were her inner circle, her courtiers. They were buried here, equipped with the magic to announce the arrival of their queen. Think about what that means. We aren't just digging through a graveyard. We are standing in a royal waiting room. And if the servants are here waiting, the queen is close. But here is the catch. While we wait for Martinez to break the final seal, we might already have the key to the queen's genetic code. To see her face, we don't need to wait for the tunnel. We just need to look at the bones of the sister she eliminated. But the results were not what anyone expected. Ephesus tomb mystery. To understand the shock of this new DNA analysis, we have to look at the family drama. History remembers the queen as a seductress, but her family tree was more like a shark tank. Her biggest threat wasn't a Roman general. It was her own little sister, Arsinoe IV. This was a relationship defined by pure, toxic ambition. When the queen was exiled, it was Arsinoe who took the throne. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, it was Arsinoe who led the army against him. She was a warrior princess who actually managed to trap Caesar in the palace. But history is written by the winners. Arsinoe was eventually captured and dragged to Rome. She was forced to march in chains. But the Roman crowds actually felt sorry for her. A teenage girl in shackles? That sympathy saved her life. She was exiled to the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. She thought she was safe. She thought the holy ground would protect her. Yeah, about that. She was wrong. In 41 BC, the queen persuaded Mark Antony to do the unthinkable. He sent agents to the temple steps. They dragged Arsinoe out and silenced her forever, right there. It was a scandal that rocked the ancient world. But for us, 2,000 years later, it provided a location. We knew exactly where the event occurred. For centuries, we thought Arsinoe was lost to history. Until the 1900s, when archaeologists in Ephesus found a unique tomb known as the Octagon. Inside was a skeleton. The bones belonged to a young person. The timeline fit. The location fit. If this was Arsinoe, we had the queen's genetic code. We could finally answer the questions about her ethnicity, her health, and her lineage. We had the map to the queen's biology. But science has a way of ruining a good story. Initial DNA tests failed because the bones had been handled too many times. But recently, in a 2025 study, advanced analysis finally gave us an answer. And get this, it shattered the entire theory. For years, people argued that this skeleton proved the queen had African ancestry. Measurements of the skull suggested an African mother. This was the smoking gun for a mixed-race dynasty. But the new AI-driven analysis didn't just change the story. It flipped the book upside down. The computer didn't see a princess. It saw a medical horror story. The 2025 verdict. Here is where the story takes a sharp left turn. The breakthrough happened when a team from the University of Vienna used micro-CT scans to create a digital map of the bone structure. They drilled into the petrous temporal bone, the densest part of the skull that holds DNA like a safe. In January 2025, the results were published. The skeleton isn't Arsinoe. It isn't a 20-year-old woman. It isn't an African princess. The DNA proved the presence of a Y chromosome. The sister of the queen is a boy. Specifically, an adolescent boy between 11 and 14 years old. And he wasn't just young. He was suffering. The scans revealed severe developmental disorders. His jaw was stunted. His skull was asymmetrical and twisted. The analysis suggests he suffered from a genetic condition like Treacher-Collins syndrome. This wasn't a healthy royal rival. This was a child with a face that had been misshapen by genetic tragedy. Even more shocking, his DNA tells us he wasn't from Egypt. His genetic markers trace back to Italy. This opens up a darker, more confusing mystery. We thought we were looking at the victim of a political hit. Instead, we are looking at a tragedy of a different kind. Why was a deformed, sickly Italian boy buried in one of the most prestigious tombs in the ancient world? Was he a scapegoat? A sacrifice? Or was he a hidden royal child whose existence was so shameful he had to be buried far away? Whatever the answer is, it turns out that the scientific proof of the queen's lineage in this specific tomb was an illusion. So, where does that leave us? We are back to square one, and square one is the historical record. And if you want to know what the queen really looked like, you don't need to find her body. You just need to look at the terrifying family tree she climbed to get to the throne, because that reality is far darker than any debate about skin color. The boy in Ephesus might have been a secret, but in Alexandria, the genetic nightmare wasn't a secret. It was royal policy, the Ptolemy problem. In a normal family tree, the branches expand upward. You have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. It is a funnel opening up to the world. But the queen's family tree didn't expand. It collapsed in on itself. The Ptolemies were a Greek dynasty ruling Egypt. They wanted to keep their power absolute and their bloodline pure. So they adopted the ancient custom of marrying within the family. They didn't just marry cousins. They married siblings. Historians believe the queen's own parents were likely full brother and sister. Even her grandparents were uncle and niece. This family was a closed loop. Geneticists estimate that the queen was born with a coefficient of inbreeding, estimated at over 45%. To put that in perspective, the child of 2 first cousins has about a 6% coefficient. This is dangerous territory. In other royal dynasties, like the Habsburgs of Spain, this level of inbreeding led to severe deformities and madness. Remember Charles II of Spain? They called him the Bewitched. His jaw was so deformed he couldn't chew. He couldn't walk until he was 8. When he passed away, the autopsy said his head was full of water and his heart was the size of a peppercorn. His coefficient of inbreeding was around 25%. The Queen of Egypt was nearly double that. Biologically, she should have been a disaster. Normally, your DNA is a conversation between your mother and father. One covers the flaws of the other. But in her case, there was no conversation. The same genes were repeating the same errors over and over, so here is the terrifying paradox. History tells us she wasn't deformed. She was brilliant. She spoke 9 languages. She charmed the most powerful men in Rome. She led armies. So, how was she a genetic miracle? Was she a 1 in a million roll of the biological dice? Or have we been missing the signs of her suffering all along? To understand if she was a victim, look at her ancestors. Her great-granduncle was morbidly obese with limbs too weak to support his body. Her father was described as weak and physically soft. Modern medical historians see a pattern of metabolic disorders and Graves' disease, an autoimmune disorder that attacks the thyroid. It causes bulging eyes and a swollen neck. But the scary part is what it does to your behavior. It floods the body with hormones, creating manic energy, rapid speech, and insomnia. Does that sound familiar? Historians have always praised her for her boundless vitality. They say she could work all night. We framed this as genius. But what if the fire inside her was actually a symptom of a genetic storm, beyond the mask? If we accept the theory that she was suffering from the joint pain of inbreeding or the manic tremors of Graves' disease, it raises an impossible question. How did she function? How do you command an army when your bones ache or your heart rate is through the roof? The answer might lie in a skill historians often overlook. She wasn't just a queen. She was a chemist. We all know the story of the pearl. She dissolved a priceless pearl in vinegar and drank it. History calls it decadence. Science calls it a chemical reaction, calcium carbonate reacting with acetic acid. She understood the properties of matter. And if she understood pearls, she understood plants. Egypt was the pharmaceutical capital of the ancient world. If she was in pain, she had access to strong natural remedies. Did she use them to numb the ache in her compromised joints so she could stand tall during diplomatic meetings? If she suffered from the mania of Graves' disease, she might have turned to Kai-Fi. This was a temple incense known for its calming properties. It would loosen the tension like a knot. Then there is the blue lotus, a flower often steeped in wine that produces a mild floating feeling. We talk about her legendary charisma, but was that charisma natural? Or was her magnetic allure actually a delicate cocktail of blue lotus wine and adrenaline, keeping her floating above the pain of her own body? And finally, consider her face. We know she wrote a book on cosmetics. Fragments of it were quoted by doctors centuries later. This shows she wasn't just buying makeup, she was researching it. Why? If the family genes gave her skin issues or a swollen neck, her obsession with cosmetics wasn't vanity. It was camouflage. She may have designed broad collars to hide her neck. She may have used kohl to reshape eyes that were too prominent. She was arguably the world's first biohacker, a brilliant woman trapped in a failing body, using every trick of chemistry to project the image of a living goddess. She spent years painting a lie over her own face, and she won. She ensured the monster was hidden, and only the goddess remained. But right now, 40 feet beneath the bedrock, Kathleen Martinez is about to do the one thing the Queen feared most. She is about to wash off the paint. If Martinez breaks through that final wall, she won't just be uncovering a royal tomb. She will be uncovering a medical archive. She might find a woman who was petite, perhaps frail, hiding her pain behind a mask. Finding the Queen won't just rewrite history books. It will rewrite biology textbooks. It will finally answer the question, was she the genetic miracle who escaped the curse? The tunnel remains silent, and the DNA machines are waiting. But the reality is far more complex than the myth we fell in love with. So, here is the real question. If we open that tomb tomorrow, who do you think we will find? The miracle or the victim? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more mysteries.